Welcome back to the United Pubcast. Apologies for being 1 or 2 minutes late because football is full of fine margins and we're preparing a nice sort of casual sit back of a stream in terms of Signed Super Sabitzer and 2-0 and 1 foot in the semi-final. 5 minutes later, Larry, we're going to have a very different discussion because whether Manchester United threw it away, bowled it, whatever you want to define, whatever you want to sort of describe it as, the second leg is far different now, and that is Manchester United's own doing. You can give Sevilla credit where need be. But ultimately, Manchester United had this tie pretty much in the bag. And look, football is a funny old game, and 5 minutes later, it's definitely not in the bag. So just sum up your quick thoughts. 7 o'clock on a Friday morning, not the chat we wanted.
No, it's not the chat we wanted. And Manchester United absolutely did bottle it. There's no two ways about it. We were in the ascendancy, 2-0 up. At the 85th minute, we were 2 goals up in the leg. And Sabitzer switches off. There's nothing De Gea can do for that goal, to be honest. Yeah, I'm saying Malasia's fault. He switches off.
No, I thought you said Sabitzer switched off.
Oh, no, Malasia.
I get what you mean.
Malasia switches off. De Gea couldn't have done anything because he's too close. There's no time to react. And Harry Maguire, I mean, I think he switches off a little bit as well, if I'm being honest. I think he wasn't alert to the ball. It's obviously landed on his head. It's unlucky in the grand scheme of things, but if he was a bit more alert, again, I think was quite avoidable. It's really unlucky, but it's not good enough, Tom. I got to be honest. I know Varane went off. I know Martinez went off. Obviously, our first choice defenders, you prefer them out there, and that doesn't happen if they are there, but you got to do better. It's just not acceptable at 2-0 up.
Yeah, look, it's one of those ones that, football is a team game. It's the collective, and that people say there's no I in team. Well, I'm telling you, there's 11 I's in terms of there's 11 individuals out there. And it is a team game, but it's made up of 11 individuals, and they need to all take responsibility and do their own job. And I thought, it was kind of sort of passing the buck on at times in terms of, it's not my responsibility, you do it. And look, ultimately, these players have done well this season, but in terms of when they deserve a bit of criticism, they're going to get it today. And look, again, fine margins. One, sort of not to blame it all on Malasia, but if he switches on and clears that ball out for a throw-in or a corner, we're sitting back and saying 2-0, we're in the semi-final. I'm just thinking, ultimately, it's not on Malasia, but it kind of is, because that's all, it comes down to individual sort of moments, and if it would be sort of praising the individual brilliance of Sabitzer if it was 2-0. Unfortunately, we can't have that discussion now. We'll get into 3-2-1s in a little bit. In regards to Sabitzer, I'm positive he will get those 3 points. For the 2 and 1 points, definitely changes in that last 10 minutes. Do appreciate everyone in the live chat. There's a lot of chat, a lot of comments flying in, which is good. Do appreciate it. We'll get to as many as possible, but a lot in there. We want to keep the sort of conversation flowing, so do get your thoughts in. But I'll hit a few of the comments. Rob, summing up my thoughts: disaster and pain. Tad here with an interesting. I wouldn't say cost us the game today, but we're going to get into Erik ten Hag's sort of game management and sort of what was forced, what was unforced, and what was his choice, and what was he looking forward to in the weekend. And 1 or 2 interesting subs, 1 or 2 forced subs. So I think Erik ten Hag's game management is so definitely up for debate. Box here, Sevilla deserve no credit. Yeah, look, I think it was United's own doing. However, Sevilla had to go and take the chances. Sevilla had to go and get it done. If we were 2-0 down and we had to rely on the mistake of someone else, as if we were 2-0 down at Old Trafford against Manchester City and we came back, okay, we could look at a Manchester City mistake, but ultimately we would say, good fight by the players, never giving up. So I think Sevilla do deserve a bit of credit, but ultimately we can only look in our own backyard. And it definitely was United. Vin here, good to see you, mate. It's obviously not on a good morning, but good to have you. Sorry to say that was poor game management. Hope it's not a serious injury for the players affected, even if it does end their season. I have a feeling, my first hunch, and we'll start with it, Larry, Lisandro Martinez. We'll get into everyone's comments on the performance, but this is the elephant in the room for me. I have a feeling Europa League quarterfinal in the 16-17 season, Zlatan Ibrahimovic did his ACL, was out for the season. Here we are, quarterfinal at Old Trafford in the Europa League. I'm not a doctor. I think Lisandro Martinez has done his Achilles, and if he has that surgery and he's out for the rest of the season and well into next season, that's my hunch. I'm not a doctor. I have a feeling that's a bad one.
It has to be his Achilles. The way he just stopped, it's a non-impact injury. That's an Achilles, and if his Achilles goes, that's generally speaking. Now, Achilles rarely gets done nowadays.
The prime example is David Beckham. Very similar to how David Beckham did it when he was playing for AC Milan. Just goes to step off, and their first reaction is to look behind them. Everyone I've never done my Achilles, they say it's excruciating pain.
Sniped, you just.
But they say you feel something. You've been shot from behind. Their first reaction is to look. And is exactly what Lisandro Martinez has done. And again, look, I'm not a doctor, fingers crossed that's not the case, but the first hunch and just his reaction as well, sometimes you can tell a player when even if they're in excruciating pain, they can kind of mask it a little bit and sort of have the realization of what has happened. And I think Lisandro Martinez's reaction, he knows something's happened and not good. Forget the result. Forget the blowing a 2-goal lead. Having Lisandro Martinez out for the rest of the season it's a disaster.
He's our best defender. And I think him and Varane as a partnership, I mean, of course, you can make the argument Varane's our best defender, but in terms of the influence Martinez has on the ball, I don't think that can be replaced by anyone in the squad. His technical ability isn't something that's spoken about, and I think it's not spoken about because it's so seamless. It's just so good. It's just something we take for granted. He can't be replaced in this team, and we might be in a position where Lindelof and Maguire are going to be our starting centre-backs for the rest of the season. It's a lot of pressure.
I think on Saturday they are. Or Saturday or Sunday whenever we play against Nottingham Forest. PO, good to see you, mate. That was a horrible ending, lads. That's the last team in this tournament you wanted to do that too. Do you think there was a thing in that last 5 minutes, maybe not before the goal went in, before Malassia's mistake, but especially when that first goal went in for Sevilla, there was a part of Manchester United were thinking, oh, God, here we are, Europa League. In their minds, they're probably thinking that's an away goal. I know away goals don't count, but in their mind, okay, that's an away goal for Sevilla. Do you think that sort of crept in that last 5 minutes in regards to the aura Sevilla have in this competition, just subconsciously?
I don't think so. I think that the Manchester United players that were on the pitch when United went behind is a different group of players that went behind in previous years. In terms of, I know we'll get into Ten Hag. Let's focus on the players on the pitch for a moment, though. Eriksen is a player who I would expect that can control a game tempo. He didn't do it, and that's not his fault alone. Casemiro, the midfield, I thought, just got overran. They got overran in that 85th minute onwards. And I kind of understand as a player when you're 2-0 up and you're close to full time, and I know that can play into your mind, but I just thought the game management from the midfield, the players on the pitch, it just wasn't there. That Sevilla, I don't know if there was a change from Sevilla. I'd need to go back and check, but it just felt like United got overrun in midfield. It just felt like they had one extra player.
You say game management from the players. How about everyone in the live chat? Not often this happens. And look, I tend to agree and somewhat disagree. It's a weird one. So keep the comments flying in. I'll probably sway my opinion. You talk about the players sort of getting overrun and sort of making the wrong decisions and not performing. Erik ten Hag made some interesting choices. Now, 9 times out of 10, he makes the right choices. Ultimately, though, in terms of you just look at the facts, it hasn't proved to be the right decision today. But some weird ones. Okay, the 2 defenders, okay, they're going to be, so they're forced off through injury. But Bruno Fernandes on a yellow card, he's going to get his rest in a couple of weeks or next week anyway. So taking him off was interesting. We'll get to the yellow. That wasn't a yellow card, but okay, he misses the second leg, which is another discussion. Bringing Anthony Elanga on, who I didn't think did anything wrong, but okay, Anthony Elanga, he's not the European quarterfinal sort of player. Weghorst for Martial. I understand you've got to sort of monitor Martial's injury, but the substitutions didn't work. And as I said, with Erik ten Hag, very often they do work, and we praise him for it. Today they didn't. I don't want to criticise him, but all's fair in love and war. You do have to criticise him today because everything was going well until Erik started changing things.
I have no issue with what Erik ten Hag did.
Yeah, no issue. It's just
But that's the thing that I'm seeing. Oh, his game management was poor today. Well, no, it wasn't. To be honest, I mean, if he played these players till the 90th minute and then we're tired and leggy against Nottingham Forest, the same people criticizing Ten Hag for his game management now are also going to be saying, "Oh, well, he should have brought Sancho off in the 60th minute. Should have brought Martial off in the 60th minute. He's still coming back from injury." At 2-0 up, you would expect again the players on the pitch to be able to manage the game. There's enough experience there. Casemiro, Eriksen, keep the ball, keep possession. That didn't happen. And fundamentally, I put the blame at the players. I think Erik ten Hag, it's what we discussed in the preview, Tom. He's looking ahead and he's saying, we've got big games. The Premier League's important. I know we value trophies, but finishing in the top 4 is your best bet at securing Champions League football. We don't know who the owners are going to be next season, if it will change at all. Let's assume it's the Glazers. This matters and it's relevant. Let's assume it's the Glazers because they're taking this to a 3rd round of bidding because they're assholes. All right. There is a very possible situation the Glazers are still in charge. You know what that means? Every dollar that we get from making Champions League matters. So finishing in the top 4 absolutely matters. Erik ten Hag can't afford not to make the top 4. That's why he's bringing off his best players.
I see that argument, of course, and we've had this debate plenty of times in regards to top 4 money and trophies. For me, it's trophies. And we're still in with a very good shout of winning this. We can go to see and get the result. But there's one comment in regards to game management, and the one for me, like, okay, Alanga and Palestri, because they're all substitutions, and we can go the individuality of Terrell Malacia making a better decision and clearing the ball, and we're saying great game management by Erik ten Hag. As I said, they are fine margins, but the one that did get to me was Bruno Fernandes. There's a few comments here, Mark, saying the annoying thing is we could have won that game 4-0. I get Bruno coming off to give Eriksen 30 minutes against the team that we're playing next week, but no reason to bring Anthony off. I thought Anthony did quite well, was always on the verge of making something happen. And Box here, 2 comments in regards to Bruno want to bring up. Taking off Bruno when he's already suspended next week was bizarre. I did not understand that at all. It was simply because he's going to get his rest. He doesn't have to get on the plane to Spain next week. He played Bruno for 90 minutes when we're up against Reading, but he takes him off in a European quarter-final. That's where, look, Erik ten Hag has done no wrong in my opinion. He's done absolutely brilliantly. He's the furthest person firm criticism at this club. Ultimately, that I didn't get it, and usually I cannot get my head around it. I'm baffled by it.
The Bruno one, it's fair to ask questions, but with Sancho and Martial particularly, I've got no qualms with it. If Bruno, let me ask you this though: if Bruno didn't play in the 6 in the last 2 games, would we even be that critical of this decision? I think it's Bruno's actually influence on the game over the last few weeks that's actually changed the way we're thinking about Bruno. Oh wait, he's capable of managing a game. He can keep the ball. Completed 100 passes the other day.
I don't think it's about his style or anything. He's one of our best players.
Yeah, he is, but in terms of let's look at how United lost this game, because that's important. It's not, I didn't look at that performance and say, oh, United needed a 3rd goal. It was a case of Manchester United needed to control and dictate the game and the game tempo. And that's where I think we failed. And ultimately, when that happens, it's a team collective, but I put a lot of that down to the midfield. And like I said, I thought the midfield particularly just got overran in the latter stages of the game, which was really disappointing because even when those subs came on, Sevilla went on top. We really just capitulated in the last 10 minutes, to be honest. And that's the thing. If United don't switch off, if Malacia doesn't switch off, if Maguire doesn't switch off, if the midfield manage the game a little bit better, we're not criticizing Erik ten Hag. So if we were fine from the 60th minute to the 85th minute, why is it Erik ten Hag's fault? It's the player's fault.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Chris here with a good point in regards to here we are very, very critical of the Bruno decision, but he ultimately says we don't know what's gone behind the scenes with tiredness, how the players are feeling. We can sit and talk about it all. And that's one of the things with Bruno Fernandes. We're saying give him a rest, give him a rest, give him a rest. Ultimately, he's given him a rest through no fault of that maybe substitution. As I said, it's Terrell. I'm not blaming Terrell Malacia, but it's a very sort of specific point to point out. If Terrell Malacia doesn't do that, we're saying that's a great substitution, resting Bruno Fernandes. So ultimately, he is right. We're being called for Bruno Fernandes to be subbed and sort of rested. Ultimately, it happens, and it looks like it backfires. But before we scrape some 1 or 2 positives, because the first half I thought was very good, I want to touch on because we might as well keep a little bit of positivity. But at the back, obviously, Varane, it doesn't look like a serious one, but who knows? Rafael Varane always potentially has a little bit of an injury cloud, so we'll get a little bit of clarity on that in a little bit. But Lisandro Martinez obviously looks like it could be quite serious. Unfortunately, we'll sort of get a little bit more information in a day or 2. But obviously that sort of gives us the inclination that starting against Forest and maybe even away in Spain is going to be Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof. Now, just the Harry Maguire one, you said he switched on. Now, I didn't even watch the replay of the goal. I just sort of, it was one of those ones I didn't want anything to do with it. So when it went in, I just sort of walked away and was gathering my thoughts sort of thing. I haven't seen the replay. You said he switched off, and I'm not going to disagree. I don't have a clear recollection of exactly the lead up to the goal. But ultimately, just the header coming bouncing off his head, it comes back to what I was saying a year ago, or just in the sort of real sort of middle patch of his sort of bad form. I was saying, even if he's doing nothing wrong, it's just why you can't have him in the team, whether he's good enough, not good enough, captain, not captain. It's just everything that, through no fault of his own. Like a header just hit his big head and went in. Like it's not going to happen to anyone else. It's nothing. He did nothing wrong in that instant.
Yeah, it's the law of attraction in the wrong way, or Murphy's law. You know Murphy's law. Your body just doesn't do what you want it to.
It's like last year. Remember those shots? I think 1 or 2 shots last season. The guy was lined up the shot, and before he had the shot, he said, "This is going to deflect off Maguire," and it deflected off Maguire and went in, and it sort of had that similar feel here.
He's a poor bastard, honestly. Like and I got to be honest. Like in terms of his actual performance today, when he comes on, he was fine. And then on the weekend, really good, actually, really good. He played in a high line, and he had good instinctual defending, 1-on-1 defending. It was all there. And then the blooper happens. and he does it every single season.
But now what's going to happen off the back of that, through no fault of his own, now confidence-wise, he's going to see that people are going to get on his back, fans are going to abuse him and his family on Twitter. That's going to get to him, and that's not going to give him the confidence going into next week when he's going to have to perform.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. Do we know what the injury with Rafael Varane was?
I'm sure it didn't look like one of those sort of big serious ones. It looks like maybe a precaution, but I haven't seen any information. Maybe Eric Ten Hag is providing a few quotes now. If there is any news breaking over Twitter or social media, do let us know in the live chat and we'll dissect it as we go. And Chris, if his head wasn't so big, it's just, Murphy's Law. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
And Steve, there was also late panic added to the Maguire mix. Yeah, look, but that's true. Manchester United's own doing. We can, as I said, it is individuals.
Harry Maguire is trending on Twitter.
And he's going to cop it. And I said, I think that's bad because we're going to rely on him. He's going to be captain next week in Spain. And fans getting on his case and abusing him and his family, that's not going to help his performance.
Troll football put Maguire celebrated his goal by doing the Black Lives Matters kneel respect.
Well, as I said, it's going to be trending. It's going to be, look, there are funny parts to it, of course, but I'm not laughing in regards to what Manchester United need. Manchester United need a performance next week, and the only way they're going to do that is support. Well, obviously, we've got to be critical, obviously, but the players do need the support. This is going to be a tough time for the players because that's going to feel like a loss. Okay, 2-2 in the tie, go to Sevilla, you can still go through, but ultimately, you look at the Arsenal feeling against Liverpool last week. They felt like they lost that match, even though 2-2 is probably a good result for them. When you're 2-0 up and you sort of throw that lead away, it is quite disappointing and sort of quite sunken feeling. So before we get into 3-2-1, so I think it's very easy for the 3-2-1 or the 3 points. Any positives? Because the first half I thought was very good. And as said, you said maybe we didn't need the third goal. I thought we did. Again, not in relation to the performance, but in regards to sort of giving us a buffer in the second leg. But ultimately the performance, Jadon Sancho could have scored after 30, 40 seconds, rightly offside, but a good bit of football there. Anthony Martial I thought was brilliant in his link-up play. I think he got the assist for one of the Sabitzer goals. Bruno got a very similar assist for the other Sabitzer goal. And the first half I thought they started with, we're talking about the players' attitude and concentration in the second half. Well, the first half I thought it was, and that's not to excuse it, but the first half I thought they were bang at it.
Yeah, agree. That's the thing, that it's a really interesting game because when the strongest 11 was out there, it was good football. And can I say the most pleasing aspect? Let's focus on some positives a little bit. We can play good football without Marcus Rashford, which is a pleasing thing to see. And Martial, again, I know anyone who's watched the United podcast, look, Anthony Martial apologist, and I make no apologies for that because he's a good footballer. And you saw that today. When he's on that pitch, different things can happen because he is just technically brilliant. I know we're linked with a number 9. I promise you, if he could stay fit, he is the perfect number 9 for Eric Ten Hag. If he stayed fit this season, he would have scored 20 to 25 goals this season, and he would be the prototype number 9. And we'd still need a number 9 because I think he needs competition. But all in all, the ability is there. Let me ask you this. If Martial has a strong end to the season, now, I think a lot of fans have said it's a foregone conclusion he gets sold in the summer. Is it as clear cut as that? Do you think, just in terms of his ability?
No, I don't think it's a sort of straight decision that he's sold. I think it's a straight decision that we bring in a striker, and that maybe it doesn't include Anthony Martial being first choice next season. I think that's where we're potentially thinking, okay, if he's not going to be first choice, we're thinking of a future without Anthony Martial. I think there is a future at Old Trafford with him for sure. But ultimately, I think the main decision is there's going to be a new striker. What that means for his future, maybe that dictates things, potentially. But I don't think at the moment our first instinct, okay, sell Martial and we'll bring in a striker. I think we're going to bring in a striker. Anthony, what do you want to do? I think that'll be the decision making. But you talk about the better football, and in the front third, I completely agree. I thought Anthony Martial linked up that play, and that's where a lot of our good football did stem from. Ultimately, though, and Sevilla ultimately got what they came for. So credit to Sevilla, game plan worked. Ultimately, they left a little bit late, but I was really surprised with their approach in that first half in terms of sitting off Manchester United, because I think the one time you can really get at Man United is press them high, but they sort of sat off and let Manchester United play out from the back. And I thought the reason, so that obviously played into why we played out from the back quite well, because Sevilla weren't pressing. But two of the players, in terms of really impressed me playing out from the back, one not through much through his own activity or engagement in the play, but just the presence of him, Casemiro. I thought him sort of dropping between the centre backs, that sort of really allowed sort of our shape sort of to take sort of full fruition. But ultimately, David De Gea as well. Now, again, he wasn't pressed with the ball, but David De Gea, I'd say, be close to 100% pass completion in regards to playing out from the back, maybe not on goal kicks or whatever, but just his general play. And again, wasn't pressed, so wasn't put under huge pressure, but did his job quite well, which we've had that discussion about De Gea, regardless of his ability or non-ability. As long as he's trying to do the right things and improve through his Manchester United career, he was doing that. But I think the main difference, and again, not through really getting on the ball and dictating play, but just having Casemiro in there, I think he made a huge difference.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. And Casemiro, his influence on this team, I always say you mark the measure of how good a player is, not when they play, but when they don't play. And I think that that's particularly relevant for central midfielders. We had it with Michael Carrick all the time. And those who are, I mean this in a really respectful way, and this isn't a pump up your or my tires, Tom, but we understand what a good footballer is. And we understand what a good footballer brings to a football team. And if anyone was around when Michael Carrick, I think it was the 09-10 season, dog's abuse for Michael Carrick from Manchester United fans. A lot of fans thought, all he does is sideways passes. He doesn't add anything. We need a better player. He's not Roy Keane. I remember all of those sentiments happening for the best part of 3 and 4 years. And then we had the last time we won the title, everyone thought Michael Carrick was world-class. He had been world-class the whole way through. But the problem is when you look at a player like that, all I see is simplicity. Now, Casemiro is a bit more dynamic in the way he plays, so he passes the eye test a little bit more. And Casemiro does more tackles. Carrick was more of he anticipated, so he didn't even need to go. When did Carrick ever go to ground for a tackle? That barely happened. So Casemiro is a bit more dynamic and a bit more to the eye. He's more in the Roy Keane mold. But when Casemiro doesn't play, you absolutely see our failure to play out from the back. So great to see the Brazilian back.
Yeah, definitely. Well, fingers crossed they don't get suspended. But when the Lamela got the yellow card for the tackle, I thought Casemiro was going to be sent off. I thought the first tackle was quite risky, but then you see the replay and the referee did get that decision right. But Bruno Fernandes is suspended. Casemiro, thankfully, is not. But Larry, we'll get into 3-2-1s. And obviously, no surprise who gets the 3 points. And I think we haven't really touched on it. And the podcast was going to be dominated by him if we didn't concede 2 late goals. But Marcel Sabitzer obviously played in that more advanced, that number 10 role in terms of, I'm sure all of us remember his days at Leipzig. The reason we remember Sabitzer's name is because he was always on the score sheet. He was always scoring goals, and you're going to do that higher up the pitch. And ultimately, he has come to Manchester United. His first few appearances, he was told to replace Casemiro and McTominay and sort of get on the ball, and it's simply not his game. He was very McTominay-like sort of in that number 6 role. Suddenly, you put him a little bit further forward and sort of impacting games in the final third of the pitch, and he does look the Marcel Sabitzer from Leipzig. So ultimately, at halftime, I was calling for him to get on all set pieces and try and get a hat-trick. What a moment for him to sort of score a hat-trick at Old Trafford in European football. That hasn't happened, but ultimately he has scored a double. And whether you want to have the discussion around his performance or the discussion around him as a long-term sign-in, I'll give you the floor. What
discussion is there to have for him as a long-term signing? It should happen. I thought it was a foregone conclusion, and it should be. I've got to say, he's been really good. He's been really good. He's a hell of a footballer, and I like him in that advanced role. I think Erik ten Hag has almost stumbled on this by accident in the sense of I think Bruno's a good number 10. I think he's a world-class number 10. But I think the way Ten Hag plays has taken, for lack of a better term, I think it's taken away from what Bruno does well. And because Bruno's a hell of a goal scorer, but he's still, if you look at the Premier League at least, he's up there. He's number 1 in terms of chances created. But I think the football intelligence and the ability on the ball that Bruno does have, he looks better in a deeper role. He really does. And I could see Bruno as an 8 and Sabitzer as a 10. There's something about that, the link-up play, everything, that just seems to work. And it definitely wasn't intended, because let's remember, Sabitzer was a replacement for Eriksen. And if Eriksen didn't get injured, he wouldn't have even been in a Manchester United shirt. But I think it's a beautiful thing we've stumbled upon. And while I still think United need that box-to-box midfielder, Bruno's emergence as a deeper lying midfielder maybe doesn't make that as urgent.
Potentially. Look, I think Erik ten Hag holds the answer to that. He's the only one who knows exactly what he wants. I still think deep down in terms of that area of the pitch, his ideal situation is Frankie de Jong. Whether that happens, we'll have a look at the Barcelona situation and what happens with PSG and Lionel Messi and whatever financial restrictions Barcelona have. But I still think he wants a different player in that sort of area of
Oh,
the pitch next to
absolutely.
number 6.
I think
But I
we
don't
need
think Bruno
someone dynamic.
Fernandes. Yeah. And look, that's not to say like Bruno Fernandes is very versatile. We've seen him on the right hand side. We've seen number 6. We've seen him number 10. We've seen number 8. He can do it all, and that's obviously a sort of very important trait to have.
Has your
But I
first
still think
choice number 10 changed, Tom, with the way Sabitzer plays? Do you think he's not necessarily a better 10, but is he more effective as a 10 in this team than Bruno is, you think?
my personal opinion, and people sort of correct me wrong with facts and say, no, this is completely wrong. My personal opinion, we don't really play with the number 10. I know we do play with the number 10, like we do. So I know I'm
Or the
kind of
most
contradicting
advanced
myself.
midfielder, let's say.
Yeah, for me, it's a 4-3-3, especially when Casemiro plays with 2 eights. Now, when 1-8 goes, okay, 1-8 sits. So one looks like they're in the 10 position, but it should balance each other out. I don't really see it as a 4-2-3-1 with one simple number 10 sitting behind the striker. I think we're best when we're they're both at it. Okay, one goes, one sits sort of thing. So I see, like, you look at the Bruno Fernandes goal today with Sabitzer. Sabitzer's in the number 10 position. Bruno Fernandes doesn't play that from like the quarterback position or halfway. He's 10 metres away from Sabitzer. He's high as well. So I'm just thinking, like, okay, Sabitzer's behind. Bruno Fernandes is behind Sabitzer, so he looks deeper. You're never going to be in perfect positions on the pitch. I think Bruno took up a high position there. It's just because geographically he looks like he's deeper. Okay, he's playing deep. Well, no, that's just where he got the ball. Sometimes Sabitzer got the ball there. And I think it's one of those ones. I like to see us just play with a normal 4-3-3 and let both of them go. And what you'd more define it as sort of one of the more advanced midfielders. But look, in saying all that, Sabitzer 2 goals, he gets the 3 points.
Oh, absolutely. You know who I'm going to say for 2 points?
Well, I think it would be because he's look. He got the assist. Obviously, a very good assist. Maybe could have done with a goal, just confidence wise. We'll get into the second half and sort of that impact on the game, but the impact on that first half performance, I thought behind Sabitzer, Martial was the best player, but maybe the most important player.
Agree. That's just when he plays compared to when Weghorst plays, chalk and cheese.
When Weghorst came on, and I don't think Weghorst did anything wrong, but you just saw the aesthetics of the body movement when Weghorst came on. Just said, "Oh God, he's lucky to be a Manchester United player."
It's not even aesthetics. He is slow. He slows it down. Like that's the reality. It's not a case of like I think Wan-Bissaka aesthetically looks like he's got a poorer first touch. I think his first touch is fine. I think he's just very gangly and awkward. But Weghorst aesthetically isn't great. But his touch is slow. Everything he does is it's that bit slower, and that's why it doesn't fit. But here's my frustration with Weghorst, and again, I don't hate being. Almost feel bad to pick on him, Like you look at him and you're like, I feel like he's you and me, Tom. He's a mate who just got lucky enough. He got picked. He won. He got picked. He got his name picked out of a draw, and he gets to play for Manchester United for the rest of the season. The layoff to Malacia late in the second half to shoot. Another striker just hits that first time. Like that's
it wasn't hit at first time. It was a little bit more to his left foot. He played a little bit central. Malacia had to sort of take the touch, but just laid a little bit more off to the left, and Malacia can hit it first time into that near post. Again, maybe that's me being a little bit pedantic and sort of in frustration of the result. But it's hard picking on Weghorst because I think his performance warrants a lot of sort of singling out and criticism. But ultimately, for what he is and what he's given us, it's very hard to be critical of him. But some 3-2-1s here. Yes, Steve, it would be hard not to sort of agree with this, but Sabitzer for all the points. We will try and be fair. We've obviously gone Sabitzer for 3, Martial for 2. Mark, I'm going Schwartz Sabitzer. Have you seen the alternate MUFC commentary? They're going really well with Sabitzer and Schwartz Sabitzer. Anthony, I thought Anthony had a good game, and Bruno for 1 point. Anthony's performance, I said fine margins. That ball hits the inside of the post and goes in. We're saying a world-class goal on tie over. And another inch the other way, we're having a different discussion. So just your thoughts on Anthony? Because, again, look, we've conceded 2 goals, but obviously he wasn't on the pitch. But defensively, I think he gives you a lot just in regards to his work rate. That's why I think he's Erik ten Hag's main man on that right-hand side.
He's improving. He's improving game on game now. I'm definitely seeing it. He's starting to use his right foot, which is pleasing. And I think they've been working on that. And Ten Hag's alluded to that a number of times throughout the season. Saying, we're working on his right foot. And he's starting to beat players. I think in the last 3 games, he has had at least one successful one-on-one dribble, which is pleasing to see. That's been the criticism. He gets into those areas of the pitch. He looks like it's going to take him on, back, puts the ball on the outside of the foot and back pass. But he's backing himself. I don't know if it's a 1 point worthy. but I'm seeing positive signs. And you're right. If he scores that goal, I mean, yeah, I'd be all over that. But 1 point, I'm
Yeah,
not
no,
too sure.
I probably wouldn't say point. The person I'd be looking at 1 point, whether, again, maybe not so much through his actual own doing individually, but just what he brought. I thought Casemiro, I thought did everything nice and good. Now, ultimately, enough for a point, maybe not, but you'll go around the pitch and sort of other people having mistakes, which potentially prove costly. You think, well, they definitely don't deserve points. The other man you mentioned there, and defensively, I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look at the goals if he plays any part. I don't think so from memory. Maybe someone could prove me wrong. You just mentioned a little bit earlier in regards to touch. I thought Aaron Wan-Bissaka again today. I thought had a pretty, especially going forward, a solid game. Again, not in terms of the way we think attacking fullbacks. You want to get to the byline and whip across in for an assist. Not so much that, but in that sort of that previous phase, sort of in and around halfway, getting the ball to Anthony, getting the ball to the striker, getting the ball into midfield. I thought playing out from the back today, Wan-Bissaka, one of his more sort of accomplished performances.
Well, he's the only defender on the pitch who I can say has absolutely no faults in the goals. So I think that would be valid. And look, can we say just quietly, the Dalot Wan-Bissaka debate has just gone to the side because Erik ten Hag has clearly said it's Wan-Bissaka first choice. And we've all just kind of been doing our starting 11s. Every match preview, we're all choosing Wan-Bissaka. Erik ten Hag is now choosing Wan-Bissaka. Debate over. Wan-Bissaka has fought his way from the oblivion.
I agree today, but is it going to shock you if Dalot starts against Nottingham Forest?
It won't shock me, but I think it's very clear. If there's a final, and that's how you know. If there's a cup final, that's your best team. If this is a cup final...
But Diego Dalot started... look, I agree completely, and things change even throughout the cup final, but we had a cup final and Diego Dalot started. I know he had a poor game and Wan-Bissaka came on, which changes the debate, but...
well, that was late January, right? I mean, I think it's changed. I think at the time, the debate was still very much well and on. I think Wan-Bissaka has willfully and truthfully cemented himself as first choice.
I think he deserves unbelievable amounts of credit in regards to the way and through no fault of his own, he wasn't performing bad simply because he wasn't on the pitch to perform, and we just sort of wrote him off. Okay, get rid of him. And we kind of sort of maybe just lazily said, "Oh, he's no good" because he wasn't playing. He didn't do anything sort of wrong to sort of warrant us sort of saying he was no good. So ultimately, the turnaround Aaron Wan-Bissaka has done to his Manchester United career, I think 100% deserves huge credit. And ultimately, we go back to players who aren't performing, whether they're not performing or they're simply not playing. Take your pick of who you want it to be, a Paul Pogba, a Jesse Lingard, in whatever circumstance. Marcus Rashford, when he's out of form, or potentially on the bench once or twice. You hear all these things in the media about looking for a move away, unrest in the dressing room, this bit of baggage, that bit of baggage. Aaron Wan-Bissaka got his head out. You did not hear a peep. Now, I know he's not the fashionable name like Lingard or Pogba or Rashford, but you never heard a peep out of his camp. Obviously, there was rumours in terms of I'm sure there was sort of genuine discussions with Crystal Palace, maybe one or two other interested clubs. But you never heard rumours about him forcing a move or wanting a move or unhappy with the manager. So the way Aaron Wan-Bissaka was completely sort of frozen out and come back and not just performances, but improved. To come back and improve, I think is a huge thing under, again, a very demanding manager, very ten Hag. Aaron Wan-Bissaka would never have seen football or the demands from a manager like Erik ten Hag would have placed on him. I'm not sure who Aaron Wan-Bissaka had at Crystal Palace as manager. Probably Roy Hodgson, to be fair. But I don't think that would ever have been placing the technical and tactical demands that Erik ten Hag would have been placing on him. So to sort of come in and adapt to that at this level and perform to the level he is doing, I think Aaron Wan-Bissaka deserves huge credit from us.
Yeah, he does. How much football did he play between the start of the season and December? I'm going to say I remember a substitution appearance against Liverpool.
He wasn't making the squad. He wasn't making the matchday squad.
He wasn't playing. He just was not playing. I think he played less than 90 minutes between the start of the season and the end of the World Cup. He was so, whatever's happened now. Again, we don't know the back end. I have to assume there was something he was doing. There were some reports a while ago, Tom, that Wan-Bissaka kept going back to London, and that was really pissing off Erik ten Hag. So apparently not staying in Manchester. But apparently that stopped. He's put his head down. He's trained hard, and he's been integrated back into the squad as a result. And he's taken his opportunities. So no, good on him. And it'll be really interesting. We've never seen Erik ten Hag be a manager going into a transfer window. The thing that I will find quite interesting is he the best credit I can give ten Hag is when United have gone into transfer windows, we always say who are going to buy these players. the value of Wan-Bissaka, the value of Diogo Dalot, the value of Scott McTominay, all these players have gone up. So if any of these players get sold to strengthen the squad, and that's the thing, I wouldn't really be opposed to Wan-Bissaka getting sold. Like I think one of him or Dalot should go. I don't know which one that is. I personally I think Wan-Bissaka is better than Dalot, so that's why I think he's probably the more sellable asset. I think Dalot is...
If Erik ten Hag has a first-choice right-back in mind, if he says, I want this right-back, like he wanted Anthony, like he wanted Lisandro Martinez, like he wanted Christian Eriksen, if there's a right-back he wants, okay, you sell one of them. If he's undecided on a right-back, I think there's far more pressing issues. You look at centre-back now, we could have Lisandro Martinez out for a year with Achilles injuries. You never know what's going to happen. Fingers crossed that's not the case. And obviously, huge need up front at striker as well. But Mark here, 100% credit to Aaron Wan-Bissaka, given what he's had to deal with. And Steve, obviously, with an interesting point in regards to we did see how Luke Shaw has kicked on in his career with a bit of competition. Maybe that has maybe changed Aaron Wan-Bissaka's mindset as well. But we'll go the 3-2-1s. We'll go 3 points for Marcel Sabitzer, 2 points for Anthony Martial, and 1 point for Aaron Wan-Bissaka. So interesting one there. But and I think deserving of those points, those 3 players. But Larry, before we do wrap up, obviously we've got Nottingham Forest on Sunday in the UK Monday. I think it's 1:30 Monday morning in Australia, which is an unfortunate kickoff time, but that is the life of a Man United fan here. But I don't know what to wrap up on, because it was a good performance, but then ultimately a disastrous performance and result at the end of the day. Ultimately, my sinking feeling, we saw Marcus Rashford in the stands. He looked comfortable. That's good. Fingers crossed he's back on the pitch soon. Lisandro Martinez, though, the Rafael Varane one I can deal with, because I think just my hunch is, okay, it's a little bit of a knock or a little bit of a precaution. He'll be back in a week or two, if at worst. Lisandro Martinez, again, I'm not a doctor. I've seen Achilles before, Larry. I think he's done.
Oh, yeah. If he hasn't done his Achilles, I'll shave my head on this stream. He's done his Achilles.
Someone clip that. Fingers crossed Lisandro Martinez is starting against Nottingham Forest.
He's done his Achilles. And again, I come back to who replaces him. There's no one. I think Lindelof is the most natural replacement. And again, I will go back to, while Maguire has played more football than Lindelof, Maguire plays exclusively as a right-sided centre-back. I think he views Lindelof as a left-sided centre-back in this team, and I think Lindelof will actually be the one to come in. Well, because Lindelof's the better... He's probably the closest we'll get. You know what will be interesting? Shaw's back soon. We've seen Shaw deployed at...
Yeah, I think that's...
I think that's...
I saw a comment earlier. I forget who was saying it now. Through injury, obviously not going to happen, but they said Scott McTominay. Scott McTominay is obviously not under Erik ten Hag, but featured once or twice for Scotland or Jose Mourinho at the back. So that would have been interesting. But obviously his injury would prevent that. But if Luke Shaw comes back from injury, I think ultimately you look at the Manchester derby. It is the direct replacement.
Well, he's the most natural replacement. Left-footed. Luke Shaw says he's 6 foot. I'm not sure I believe that. I've always had that hunch with Luke Shaw. I think he puts heels on in his shoes. Anyway.
I've got a photo somewhere here with him. He's a big guy. He's a big guy.
Yeah, but you're not the biggest guy.
Yeah, to be fair. Well, I'll shave my head too. Actually, I've just seen, I could do with a bit of a trim today. I'll go off, have a shower before work. Chris here also saying shave it as well. Yeah, fingers crossed he's not injured, and we'll get those clippers out for Larry. And we have 6 weeks to hold on for the season. More injuries are coming. Well, we get into the sort of criticism of Erik ten Hag's Bruno substitution, but ultimately we've been crying out for weeks to sub Bruno Fernandes. Ultimately, when it has come, we can see why Erik ten Hag doesn't do it. Maybe that is exactly why.
Yeah, Box makes a good point here. Don't trust Malacia at left. I got to be honest. I know people have been praising Malacia. I think there's a massive drop-off. I think there's a massive drop-off, but that's what the drop-off will do when you bring in a, £13 million left back. Obviously, there's going to be a drop-off. Yeah, but I think when you sign a young player like that, you're buying potential. Potential's in 5 years' time. Potential's not for Saturday. Even on potential, I don't see it. When he fulfills his potential, if Malacia improves, which he will, is he as good as Luke Shaw? I don't think so. I don't see it. I don't think.
I think Luke Shaw at times is sort of regarded as one of the best left backs in the world. I think whoever's going to be understudy to that is going to have big shoes to fill. But I do agree completely in regards to if he is fit. in regards to what we have seen, especially in that Manchester derby, when I think, someone correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure Victor Lindelof and Harry Maguire were available for selection, and ultimately it was Varane and Luke Shaw. So the evidence we have in regards to who the preferred replacement is when Lisandro Martinez is out is Luke Shaw, and that will be very interesting. But if he's coming back from injury,
I think Luke Shaw as our centre back for the rest of the season is very, very probable.
Say that again.
I think Luke Shaw as our centre back for the rest of the season is very probable. If you look at how Ten Hag sets up, he seems like it is similar to Guardiola. He likes having a left-sided, left-footed centre back because it just means like it's a natural progression when they're playing out. When you're right side on your left, on the left, like of course it can be done, but it's that split second quicker because it's just more natural. Yeah. I understand it too. I think Shaw's the most natural replacement to Martinez. Shaw's good on the ball, good defender. I think that the thing with Shaw obviously is defensive positioning. That's the risk. Because when you play as a left back, which I play as a left back when I play football, it's a different position. It's a completely different position, and your responsibilities are different. So he would need someone constantly talking to him, Luke Shaw. And then there's the concern as well. If it's Varane and Shaw, you can handle Shaw at centre back. If it's Maguire and Shaw at centre back, it's a bit more hairy. Don't know. It's interesting to see what Ten Hag does.
Well, he's going to have to do something because it is a quick turnaround, not just for Sevilla, but a very important game away.
Maybe he'll tell Martinez we'll tape it up and you'll be right.
That wouldn't shock you, and fingers crossed, and would obviously love to see Larry get the Clippers out next week on the stream. But Mark, this way I do get a little bit of hope in regards to, and again, I think that a lot of, and I'm guilty of this as well, a lot of the Evra and Malacia comparisons are quite lazy, just in regards to the physical stature of the two players in terms of the way they play the game. But yeah, when Patrice Evra came, he looked woeful. Even though we knew he was a good player, he looked woeful, Larry.
He was, but I think that's different. Evra always had the ability on the ball. I think that's where Malacia lacks. It's not defensively, just on the ball. I don't think he's quite there.
No, well, time will tell. Fingers crossed. We're not having this discussion next week. Fingers crossed. We've got one foot in both feet in the semi-final this time next week. I'll just have a quick look, Larry, at the other results in the Europa League because there are other teams in the competition, believe it or not. Feyenoord beat Roma, so that's not a good one for Jose. That's an interesting one. That was in Feyenoord. Leverkusen and Feyenoord scored. The goal scorer was Wifer.
1-0.
1-0, sorry. Yeah, this goal scorer was Wifer. But Leverkusen had a 1-1 draw against that Union team. Don't know where that Union... Is they from Belgium?
Berlin?
There might be Berlin. They had a 1-1 draw with Leverkusen. Juventus got the win against Sporting Lisbon. And Sporting and Juventus are on our side of the draw. So Juventus have potentially 1 foot in the semi-final. We've got to go away to Sevilla now, Larry.
Is Pogba playing yet?
I saw he's on the bench. He didn't come. Did he come on? He came on in the 86th minute for Di Maria. So you would love Pogba and Di Maria back at Old Trafford in the semi-final. But Larry, semi-final.
Wow, Pogba. Sorry, Tom.
But Larry, semi-final. Do we get back? Do we get there? Is it Sevilla against Juventus or United against Juventus? Because now,
I think we drop out. That's just my hunch. I just got a feeling. I think Ten Hag is prioritizing the league in the FA Cup.
I don't think he's prioritizing. I just think the facts of the matter now with injuries and going away to Spain, I think there's just a good chance, just the way football happens, that Sevilla get a better result on the day. And if they get a better result than us on the day, simple maths says they're through.
All right. I'm just keeping up with the presser, Tom. Hold on. This is from Ten Hag. I cannot tell you what it is, but it's not Achilles. It's not that area.
I told you I'm not a doctor. Don't listen to me. I'm not a doctor.
He'll still be out for a long time.
He did look a little bit to the side of his foot rather than sort of grabbing the calf and the back of the foot.
He grabbed the back. The only other thing you can think of is it was non-impact. That's the interesting part. I don't know if Erik Ten Hag's playing a bit of cat and mouse there. I'm not convinced. And
sometimes it maybe if the swelling, even the doctors and physios would have no clue. Maybe they do need to wait for the swelling to come down. But look, fingers crossed. And as I said, anything I said at the start in regards to me sort of thinking it's an Achilles, I'm not a doctor. Who knows?
Ten Hag defends his positioning around the substitutions. He says Rafa was injured, then Martial first start in a long time. We had to make him come off in the 60. Bruno, I got a warning from the ref about a second booking. Same with Anthony. Yeah. I had to make the subs, no other choice. So Anthony, he was concerned about getting a red. Bruno, he was concerned he was going to get a red. and with Rafael Varane sub already made, he felt he had no choice. Interesting.
Well, I like him with that, and look, obviously he needs to defend himself, and rightly so. But also, I come back to while we're critical of it now in hindsight, I also look at it at the time, and again, not to blame it on Troll Malacia, because I think the issues were far bigger than him in that last 5 minutes. But ultimately, it does come down to individuals, and if he simply clears that ball or deals with that situation better, we're having a far different discussion. We're 2-0, and we're through to the semi-final, and we're sort of praising the game management and giving these players a rest. So ultimately, I do look at Erik ten Hag's decision making in that time. And he probably does get it right. Now, ultimately, we can sit here and say it's wrong in terms of the way it has backfired, of course. But I've got full faith in Erik ten Hag. Maybe a sort of an off day at the office that happens. Fingers crossed he and the players can bounce back on Sunday against Forest, because we're going to need it. Need to sort of regroup a little bit of form. So I would say ahead of that trip to Sevilla.
David McDonald from the Mirror is suggesting it is an Achilles. Paul Scholes thinks it's an Achilles.
Yeah.
We don't have rocks in our heads. I think Ten Hag's playing a bit of cat and mouse here. I think it's an Achilles. You don't do what Martinez did with an ankle. You feel an ankle go. There's a twist. There's a turn. It's an Achilles. I'm telling you. I think that this is cat and mouse. Wait till it comes out. Ten Hag does this all the time. Look at the Rashford injury. He'll be out for a few games. What's that mean? Yeah,
well, Box put in here, Jamie Jackson has reported, Ten Hag from Ten Hag's mouth, saying there's a chance Marcus Rashford is fit to face Sevilla next week. Fingers crossed that is the case, because I'd like to see Marcus. Obviously, you've got to need that goal threat on the counter. Whether we play counter-attacking style, I'm not sure, but you're definitely going to need that threat in behind us, Sevilla, and hopefully you can link up with Anthony Martial, because I thought Jadon Sancho actually played quite well, but just not enough to warrant a spot over anyone. In terms of it really didn't take his chance. So I think you're definitely going to need Marcus Rashford in that second leg. But look, if Dr. Ten Hag is playing a blinder here, Larry can get those clippers ready for next week when Lisandro Martinez.
I'm not convinced. I'm a man of my word, but I'm not convinced Ten Hag's giving us the truth here.
Unfortunately, I do think you might be correct there. But fingers crossed the Butcher can recover quickly, even if it is a serious injury. We're going to need him next season. It's not just about this season. We're going to have bigger games than Sevilla in the Europa League next season. Fingers crossed it's Real Madrid in the Champions League semi-final. And we're definitely going to need Lisandro Martinez for that. So, Larry, before we wrap up, any parting words on today's, I'd say, disappointment?
Just move on. Turn it around in the second leg. And if you do that, then this game's easily forgotten. We're half-time. It's half-time in another game, in a game of football. Manchester United got 90 minutes to make up for this. So let's wait and see. It's at the end of the day, let's call it a 0-0 draw. We go again. And that's where we sit. It's just treat it like another game of football. Go win the next game and you're through.
We've won a few games in Spain this year as well. Obviously beaten Sociedad, beaten Betis, got a good performance and result away in Barcelona. So maybe Man United, maybe they sleep well in Spain. Maybe.
Let's not rewrite history. If Manchester United played their strongest team for the rest of the game, we win that game comfortably.
Yeah.
No doubt in my mind. Let's also not forget if our centre-backs stay fit again.
But the fear is, I 100% agree, the fear is we won't have our strongest team in Spain.
Well, and again, if that's what happens, then I think Ten Hag is not prioritizing. I think he wants to win these competitions, but I think he's also realizing the Premier League is more important. And that's why he pulls off his best players in the 60th minute. Case in point. He's not doing that against Nottingham Forest. I promise you that.
Time will tell. Look, I agree in part. I think it's also just this isolated game in terms of 90 minutes. Sometimes we sort of draw all these other games and sort of...
I need my coffee.
One coffee. It is almost 8 o'clock, so I do appreciate everyone joining. We had a 50-minute stream this morning. As I said, it was supposed to be sort of praising Sabitzer and his match-winning double. Ultimately, 5 minutes before the stream, we had to change everything and sort of change everything to an absolute Sevilla shocker. But we do appreciate everyone's interaction in the comments, their live chat. Make sure you do leave a like on the video on your way out. That'll be very much appreciated and cheer us up ahead of the weekend. And make sure you do subscribe and hit that notification bell so you are notified next time we do go live. Not sure, maybe tonight with the Nottingham Forest preview, or maybe tomorrow, or maybe just the sort of natural review post-match on Monday night. Time will tell. I'm going to see, not sure, Larry, if you join us, not sure, maybe anyone in the supporters club, our Man United supporters club here in Sydney, are off to see Morgan Schneiderlin, obviously former Manchester United player. Tomorrow he's playing here in the A-League, going off to watch him play and maybe meet him for a photo autograph or two. And yeah, a good weekend ahead. That on Saturday night, then Man United Sunday night. Looking forward to your weekend, mate.
It's a Manchester United field one way or another. So that's always a good weekend, Tom.
And make sure
And
you do
happy
stay
Easter
tuned.
to all the Orthodox people. Anyone who's Orthodox, happy Easter for this week.
Well, it's Greek Easter. I'm off to my wife, her parents' place. Obviously, Greek Easter is a weekend sort of process and protocol in terms of nothing but eating meat dishes for 6 hours. So I'll come back looking like a balloon on Monday for the stream. But make sure you are notified. Any huge breaking news will get around Lisandro Martinez. I'm sure we'll go live. But Box here saying Lisandro Martinez has an inflamed area. That is why they're going to do studies later. But it is presumed that the injury is the tendon. Achilles tendon. That's what rings a bell for me. But until then, hopefully everyone has a good weekend. Stay safe and eats plenty. And we'll chat to you soon. Cheers.
Cheers.